A very good evening and welcome to the 8 p.m. news broadcast brought to you by Eswatini TV. My name is Nondobego Nzabgelogo. Let's take a look at tonight's headlines. His Royal Highness Princess Carlo has applauded the Zoe Gina Foundation for the great work it does in taking care of vulnerable children. His Royal Highness Prince Lindani Ngosi, as the patron of the Lihlele Maswati Foundation, has officially opened and presented a preschool structure to the Ganyama community. His Majesty's government has announced the lifting on the ban on alcohol with effect from the 26th of October 2020. The news in detail. His Royal Highness Princess Carlo has applauded the Zoe Gina Foundation for the great work it does in taking care of vulnerable children. His Royal Highness was speaking in Bolonjeni at Stegi when visiting the children, where he promised to assist the organization.
On his birth month, His Royal Highness Prince Carlo has found it important and necessary to extend his generosity to the needy, to appreciate God's blessings. To thank God for blessing him with another year, he visited the Zoe Gina Foundation in Bolonjeni constituency in Sitegi. The Zoe Gina Foundation is taking care of vulnerable children who are between the ages of 5 to 20. His Royal Highness Prince Sikalo says they appreciate the Zoe Gina Foundation for approaching Sikalo Foundation for assistance. His Royal Highness also hoped for good relations and cooperation between the two foundations.
Kulomsebenzi lo wendiwa lapha ku Zoe Gina Foundation kuyimsebenzi lemihle leseyifakele ukuthi ihamba kanjani. Nathi sesibuka ukuthi siyi foundation, Sikalo Foundation, sitana nabo sikhona ukuthi bathole lokuya ngasethunjini, njengoba bekunene sekachazile ukuthi ifoundation yakhe isebenza kanjani. Nasi sesidele ukuthi usekela yona ngekuthi balobuke ichubeleka phambili lehamba ibhekephi bekunene. Sithatha lelithuba nje sibonga ukuthi noma si foundation sigijima lapha nalapha bakhonile bona bezo foundation ukuthi basikhumbule ukuthi abacele lisido ngakuyo ifoundation yeSikalo Foundation ukuthi ito babambisa kulomsebenzi, nalokuthi ke bayabonakala ukuthi bayadikhandla kakhulu ngemsebenzi laba wendako ukuthi naku sebacala tingathe kanti tingathe nato ngitona develop khona kuletha impilo dilethe nalokuya ngasethunjini kuze ukuthi bakhone ukuthi balale badlile, ngoba vele lesimo labakuso le sisimadima ukuthi mawungalala nje ungakadli kanti phela usesekuyona leyo treatment ungathikhanza ukuthi sowulinyadwa ngikona le treatment kanti makunalokudla lokukhona utawukhona nokuthi umtimba ukhona kudisekela nebekunene.
The founder of the foundation, Zoe Gina, says she had initiated it for HIV positive children, but then to avoid stigma around these children, she decided to welcome every vulnerable child. The organization started being operational just last month, and it is in need of support to fulfill its mission and objectives. Other speakers included the Minister for Tinkhundla and Administration, David Ngampalala, who emphasized on the fact that children are a gift from God and they are the future generation, so there is a huge need to take care of them. The Lubombo Regional Administrator Themba Msibi said as a region, they appreciate what His Royal Highness has been doing for them. Bolonjeni Member of Parliament Jacob Siwela said what His Royal Highness is doing supports the Tinkhundla system and also demonstrates the love of their majesties for the nation. The Prince Sikalo Foundation donated food groceries to the Zoe Foundation, which will assist when making lunch for the children. On the news, I'm Polile Mazia at Mbolonjeni.
His Royal Highness Prince Lindani Ngosi, as the patron of Lihlele Maswati Foundation, has officially opened and presented a preschool structure to Ganyama community under Eswatini chiefdom. During the event, His Royal Highness was represented by Dr. Skomba Gumbi, the organization's chairperson of the board of directors.
Under the theme Caring for Those That Need Help, Prince Lindani Ngozi through Dr. Skomba Gumbi officially opened and handed over a preschool structure to the Ganyama community under the Preschool Umphakathi. The structure is worth 380 of emalangeni. On his speech, Lizinyane through Dr. Skomba Gumbi said Lihlele Maswati Foundation is working hand in hand with their majesties in a bid to better lives of the nation.
Lo msebenzi lona ke ndvuna usibite imali lecishe ibe ngemalangeni langu 380,000 lefakwe kulenhlangano yelihle leMaswati. Sengephetha ke umvane Nkosi ungithumile ukuthi ngicele ukuthi lesakhiwo sibosinaka ngoba kuye kuvise ebhlungu kwekuthi wende indvo bonke bathi inhle kodwa uthi uyabuya ngakusasa noma emva kweminyaka uyikhanze seyidzilikile kanzi phela kumcoka kwekuthi indvo lenjengesakhiwo ibonakekelwa nakufa alfastelo uvele ulibuyisele ungameli ukuthi aze afe onke nakucala kunetha uvele uvale leyo mbobo ungameli ukuthi kuze kugcwale emanti endlini kutawumjabulisa naye nakabuya la ngakusasa akhanze lenzawo solo ibukeka inhle njengoba nje inhle namuhla.
Minister of Education Honorable Lady Howard Mabuza thanked Lihlele Maswati Foundation for the role it is playing in the education sector.
Kuyinthokoto lenkulu kithi silitiko letemfundo nokucecesha ukuthi sithi khanze sila kulomcimbi namuhla lomkhulu futhi lomgcokwana kangaka wekutokwemukela sakhiwo se preschool lesisiphiwa inhlangano yakalihle leMaswati Foundation. Sithi khanza nje sibonga kakhulu umsebenzi lomhle kangaka ngoba empilweni sonke sitawuvumelana ukuthi noma ngabe wendani ikakhulu lapha na wakha nje into yakho lo watiko ukuthi ufuna kwakha into yakho letakuqhubha empilweni uyaye unake le foundation yalesakhiwo sakho. Namuhla siteke stonaka ifoundation ngoba ifoundation ngala itiko letemfundo ngibo bona labamfana labancane bona laba lesitengabo namuhla. Silitiko sitawulekelela la kulo electrical connection ekuthenini kuwayarisheke angene gezi. Nisheshe nashaya ndawo tsini ngoba la sikhwameni kugcwele. Sithi ke futhi ke sitayifaka ne ceiling kuso sona lesakhiwo sitawufaka kanye nemashelufa la khona kutawuhlala letincwadi tama ke simelane lekathi unipha dona kanye nase catechism lethu abe khona nakhona emashelufa bese ke sesisula inkundla ngekufenisela lendzawo yale preschool.
Chief of the area, Prince Japane, promised Lizinyane that the structure will be well taken care of.
Sibe siphoqosini sendlulisa ukubonga kakhulu khona enhlanganweni yelihle leMaswati. Sithi nje siyambonga umdali ukuthi athi umbangosalele nje asicabange nathi asiphuphe ukuthi awu asengihambe ngiyawusita esiphoqosini. Nganasi isikolo lesikhona namhla lambi kwethu. Ngalawo magama etikhulumeni lesetikhulumile. Siyethembisa sisive kwamina ngisikhutha la esiphoqosini ngiyethembisa ukuthi lesi isakhiwo lesikolo angeke nikhanze kufe emafastelo siyawuhlale sisinakekela ngaso sonke isikhathi.
Other speakers were sponsors and partners of Lihle Maswati Foundation. Macmillan donated books worth 20,000 emalangeni. Post and Telecoms company EPTC promised to install and maintain internet facility in the structure. Other speaker was the Member of Parliament Mduduzi Matsebula, who uploaded work done by Mazinyane in the country. Indvuna Matsebula shared a brief history of Siphoqosini umphakathi.
Sikhulu sethu sokuqala ngumntwana ngosijabhane. Umntwana ngosijabhane welanywa ngumntwana ngosilutho. Umntwana ngosilutho welanywa ngumntwana ngosimaduma ngahle. Sikhuthala wandle namhla ukuthi inkosi bese iphindze sinika umntwana ngosijabhane. Leke kunguye namuhla nine bekunene lethume yona inkosi ukuthi la kulendzawo yasesiphoqosini leyakhiwa ngendlela yekuphakela asivusele ubukhosi bethu ngaye umntwana ngosijabhane lokhona namhla kulomsebenzi lesihlangene ngawo nebekunene.
On the news tonight, I'm Xolisi Mavimbela with Thabiso Dlamini, Siphoqosini Kanyama.
His Majesty's government has announced the lifting of the ban on the manufacturing and distribution of alcohol in the country with effect from the 26th of October 2020. The lifting on the ban on alcohol was announced by Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini during a media briefing at the Cabinet offices in Mbabane.
It has been almost 4 months since government imposed a ban on alcohol to curb the spread of COVID-19. In September, government had promised to review the ban on alcohol at the end of that month. Speaking during a press conference, Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini said the government is alive to the concerns of the liquor industry concerning the reopening of the sale of liquor in the kingdom, and they sympathize with the industry for the inconvenience they've been through over the past months. The Premier says this is a tough decision which Cabinet took based on health advice in order to minimize the spread of the virus and to save more lives.
His Majesty's government has since reviewed the ban, working in collaboration with health experts, and has taken the decision to lift the ban with effect from the 26th of October 2020. Conditions of sale. The following conditions will apply to liquor businesses. Manufacturers of alcohol shall operate as per their normal operating hours. Distributors, wholesalers and retailers shall operate on Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. There shall be no liquor sale on weekends. Liquor shall be sold for home use only. Drinking in public places, at picnics, and the hosting of house parties will not be allowed.
The Prime Minister emphasized that liquor businesses shall have the responsibility to enforce the wearing of masks, the observation of social distancing by everyone entering their premises, as well as ensure that there is no loitering around their premises. Dlamini says while these are exciting times for the arts industry, it is important that they remind the practitioners involved that COVID-19 is still a threat.
It is important that we remind all artists, art lovers and entertainment venues that only venues which have applied for and received an entertainment activity hosting compliance certificate from the Eswatini National Council of Arts and Culture can host the reopened activities.
Dlamini emphasized that government will not hesitate to close down any uncooperative venue, association and or club, and to further bring to the hands of the law all those who will break it. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Sibusiso Ngubane in Mbabane.
Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini says while the COVID-19 recovery rate has been impressive over the past month, however, the COVID-19 threat is still not over. The Prime Minister was speaking at Cabinet offices during a COVID-19 media briefing.
The Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini says over the past 7 months, the Kingdom of Eswatini, just like the rest of the world, has also grappled with the scourge of COVID-19, which has not only strained the health sector but negatively impacted on the economy and people's livelihoods. The Prime Minister says as of Monday morning, a total of 5,669 people in the kingdom have been infected, with a recorded 113 deaths.
While the recovery rate has been impressive over the past month and a marked dip in infections has been observed, we cannot afford to be complacent and assume that the worst is behind us. We are still above an average of 10 infections a day, which means all of us have to take full responsibility in order to save lives. Health experts have warned us that we are in danger of experiencing another upsurge of cases over the festive season if we do not take heed of the COVID-19 health prevention protocols. We therefore urge all Emaswati to consistently adhere to these non-pharmaceutical health measures, even at a time when more partial lockdown restrictions are lifted by government.
The Prime Minister reiterated that other grades in the country's schools will reopen early January 2021. And the Ministry of Education will outline the regulations of how pupils will learn going forward next year. The Prime Minister added that as they relax the restriction on traveling across borders, they anticipate an influx of people traveling into and out of the kingdom, which has a further potential of increasing the number of cases if measures to control the pandemic are ignored. Thus, they encourage Emaswati to travel only when necessary, as the virus is still prevalent and taking lives both in Eswatini and globally. He emphasized that the easing of travel restrictions does not mean the virus is no longer a threat on people's lives. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Sibusiso Ngubane in Babane.
The Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku has praised their majesties for strengthening bilateral relations with the Republic of China, Taiwan, for the benefit of all Emaswati. The Deputy Prime Minister said this when receiving 400 tons of rice from the Republic of China, Taiwan. The event was held at the NDMA warehouse in Matapa.
Since the country is still battling the COVID-19 pandemic, which has negatively affected the country's economy and most businesses have closed down, resulting to many Emaswati losing their jobs, the Republic of China, Taiwan continues to support the government with medical assistance, food parcels and other commodities. Taiwan has donated for the second time 400 tons of rice as early in May. The embassy donated 230 tons of rice and medical equipment to the kingdom through NDMA. The ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan in the country, Jeremy Liang, says a strong nation is one where all members of society have the chance to participate equally and contribute to the attainment of lasting prosperity.
It's an honor and also privilege to donate 400 tons, which is behind me, of rice to the Kingdom of Eswatini through the Deputy Prime Minister Office and the National Disaster Management agencies. I wish to thank all of Taiwan's friends in Eswatini for the October 10th National Day congratulatory messages.
Le rice lena itawusita kakhulu ekunikeni labo laba
lukumedeke kakhulu.
Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku has praised the Republic of China, Taiwan, for making sure that Eswatini are not ravaged by the pandemic, but instead they get assistance of food parcels and medical equipment. Masuku says the bilateral relations between the two countries have borne much fruits in the past 52 years. Reporting, I'm Zoto Adlameni with Muzum Konta in Matapa.
Maloma Colliery Mine, in collaboration with the Eswatini Medical Aid Scheme, has donated 28 beds amounting to over 200,000 in Malangeni, which will help patients who are receiving treatment at the Lubombo Referral Hospital and those that are treated at Mavuso in Manzini. The beds were received by the Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku at the NDMA warehouse in Matapa.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic occurred in the country in March this year, the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini then decided that patients who are being treated for the virus are well taken care of at the Lubombo Referral Hospital and Mavuso Trade and Exhibition Center in Manzini. To support the government in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, Maloma Colliery Mine donated 8 beds, while Eswatini Medical Aid Scheme donated government with 20 beds. Maloma Colliery Mine's Chief Executive Officer Sengpiles Melani says the company has realized the negative impact caused by the disease, while Eswatini Medical Aid Scheme's Marketing Manager Sicelo Mkonde says to support the government in the fight against the COVID-19, there is a great need for local companies to assist during these trying times.
And siyafuna ukuthi le sifo sigcina sesikhonile ukusinqoba. And imine ke yasesiyabona ukuthi through iboard yayo ukuthi ifake nayo lokuncane lokungile mibhethe ke lesaye contributor mibhethe lengu-8 letawuya ye-referral.
Singiswazi Medi ke kuyasithokozisa ukuthi namhla singafaka sandla kule donation lena leng-20 wemibhethe ukuthi yongena khona e-referral hospital.
Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku has commended the two companies for setting a good precedent in the support on the alleviation of the pandemic.
Bonge ukuthi uhulumende wembumbe wethabela kakhulu lolusito lapha kuthena kusuka lo mkhuhlane tinkampani tonke eveni tasukuma noma bekulukhulu.
Masuku further encouraged other companies to assist where possible in order to save many lives of Eswatini from this pandemic. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Zoto Adlameni with Muslim Konda in Matapa.
The Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku has called upon Eswatini to renew their commitment to invest in girls' health, education, safety, and put an end to harmful practices that hold girls back from reaching their full potential. The DPM said this at a press conference on the International Day of the Girl Child, which was held at his offices.
The Kingdom of Eswatini joined the world in recognizing the 25th anniversary of the International Day of the Girl Child under the theme My Voice, Our Equal Future. The Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku says this day provides individuals, families, communities and organizations the opportunity to raise public awareness of the different types of abuse girls suffer from.
Most of the time, teenagers are blamed for their pregnancy, and nothing is said about the men who caused the havoc. So that disproportionate blame goes to the girl, and those who make them pregnant. We're so silent. We can even hear the silence. Nobody bothers to find out causes of her pregnancy. Instead, we overburden the girl child.
UNFPA representative Margaret Twala encourages society to listen and lift up girls' voices because too often their voices are silenced.
For millions of girls around the world, silence is enforced through child marriages and other harmful practices. Not only do these practices violate a girl's bodily integrity and autonomy, they steal her confidence and ability to make informed choices about her life.
Gender Consortium representative Zanele Vilagati Tabete says society needs to do better to ensure that girls are not left behind.
We'd also like to commend the government of Eswatini for having such an elaborate policy and legislative framework that protects the girl child in the country.
She says this calls for government, the private sector and civil society to respond to this challenge as a matter of urgency. Reporting, I'm Lungilele Makakula with Mbongwatube in Babane.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a meeting with the ministry's portfolio committees in Parliament to look into United Nations protocols that should be adopted by the House. The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Thuli Dladla, says some of the protocols will determine how the kingdom trades with other countries.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation last week met members of the ministry's portfolio committee in Senate, subsequent to engagement session with senators last week. On Monday, the ministry's officials met the ministry's House of Assembly portfolio committee members to sensitize them on the international conventions that the country is expected to ratify.
Lama instruments ke nathi sesijake ukuthi awaphumelele phela ngoba lamanye awo
the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, Thuli Dladla, says one of the benefits of ratifying and implementing certain amendments in these conventions is an important move towards attaining of the country's development targets. Chairperson of the Ministry's Portfolio Committee, Sibusiso Nxumalo, says the ratification of the international instruments is key as some touch on international trade.
We are more concerned about Swaziland doing business with the outside world. So we are here to safeguard that Swaziland has proper agreements in place with the available markets, that is SACU, and even beyond COMESA, so that our strategy as a country is to look into producing, be a manufacturing country which will produce for these available markets.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation says upon the ratification of the international instrument, the country stands to benefit financial assistance by finding potential funders for implementing its programs and projects. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Mbabane.
South African fuel distributor Fuelex has been granted a license to operate in the country and is set to create 800 jobs. The Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Manqoba Khumalo, says increasing the amount of fuel imported from South Africa will increase Eswatini's SACU revenue. The event was held at the Hilton Garden Inn Hotel and proceeded to eLwandle for the sod cutting.
The Minister of Commerce, Industry and Trade, Manqoba Khumalo, says energy demand has for many years played a major role in economic growth, and he trusts that the entry of Fuelex will offer the country a direct benefit in terms of economic recovery. The minister says Fuelex will offer eMaswati 300 direct jobs and 500 indirect jobs.
We need to increase the amount of fuel that we import into the country, Dr. Sakolo, from South Africa. Because if we import fuel from other countries, and fuel is a very high value commodity, we diminish or decrease our SACU revenues. But if we're able to increase the amount of fuel that we import into the country from South Africa, and that's what Fuelex is going to be enabling, it will not only create jobs, but it will also bring in a lot more money into the government kitty.
Fuelex Group CEO Christopher says they are here for the long haul.
This is here for the long run. We want to grow Eswatini. We want to re-establish economic relations between South Africa and the kingdom itself, where fuel can be supplied from South Africa into Eswatini to establish that relationship. We have various tools and facilities available within South Africa.
APA CEO Sibane Mgomezulu says this 100 million Amanangeni investment will not only open opportunities for people at eLwandle area, but for also interested parties to start businesses and buy fuel to supply their own operations.
The construction of the depot at Lwandle in Manzini will not only bring a hive of activity to the surrounding communities, but it is anticipated that the city will see increased growth across various industries.
Lwandle Chief Ngamane Mkachwa says this is a milestone in the history of the Kingdom of Eswatini.
It is my wish that the project be a success, so that the Eswatini nation and its forthcoming generations could find and use.
He says he hopes the youth and women will target these opportunities and benefit. Reporting, I'm Lungulele Makakula with Mbonga Dube in Mbabane.
And in our sports news, Pigs Peak Black Swallows chairman Charles Mathebula has announced a new managing committee to run the team for the next upcoming season. The committee will be headed by Vusi Tomo, who will be the CEO. Mathebula said this in an interview with Eswatini TV Sports in Mbabane.
The chairman of Pigs Peak Black Swallows, Charles Mathebula, was voted to the executive committee of the Premier League of Eswatini, which demands him to focus more on his duties in the Premier League. He has since announced a new management committee that will lead the team for the coming season. The committee is headed by Vusi Tomo, who will be the Chief Executive Officer. General Manager will be Mduduzi Shongwe. Siyabonga Mdluli will be the Technical Manager. Carl String will be Head of Security. The Head of Operations will be Pastor Vilagadi. Charles Matambo will look at the team's finances. Mandoza Mathebula will head the Welfare Department. And Head of Marketing will be Samgeliso Smelane. The chairman, Charles Mathebula, says they had to get qualified people for the position as required by CAF under the club licensing rules.
What we have considered, we have been compelled by the CAF licensing requirements, which have got specific requirements to say when you appoint a person, you must look for a particular academic qualification and experience. And there are positions specifically which are required, which, for example, is the head of the admin, which is the CEO, the finance person, chief security, marketing. Those are stipulated positions which are coming with the CAF licensing compliance. So we are trying to maintain and upgrade according to the standard and to try and be professional because we are now in the Premier League and we are expected to improve our systems so that we improve in the development and in terms of football in the country.
Mathebula concluded by saying they want to compete next season and not fight for relegation, and to do that they will have to fix their management first before they demand anything from the players. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi, Mbabane.
We've come to the end of our news bulletin, but before we wrap up, let's take a quick recap of the headlines. His Royal Highness Princess Talo has applauded the Zoe Gina Foundation for the great work it does in taking care of vulnerable children. His Royal Highness Prince Lindani Ngosi, as the patron of the Lihlele Maswati Foundation, has officially opened and presented a preschool structure to the Ganyama community. His Majesty's government has announced the lifting on the ban on alcohol with effect from the 26th of October 2020. Eswatini, that is all the news we had for you tonight. Up next is the weather forecast. Good night and